Boss dares black daughter of a mechanic to fix an impossible engine. Her secret shocks everyone. The soft rumble of an engine, the sharp clink of metal meeting metal. Overhead, harsh white light pours down onto a silent silver Porsche, sitting dead center in the workshop. Reginald Barker, shouting with disdain, "Is this some kind of joke? A child in my shop during an inspection?" His words slice through the air like a slap. The cold, contemptuous voice cracks the silence of Central Motors, a place where every bolt, every smear of grease, carries the sweat of men who've spent decades under hoods and beneath lifts. Every hand pauses mid-task, every eye turns. At the center of their gaze, a white man in a tailored Italian suit, shoes so polished they reflect the workshop ceiling, standing like a judge presiding over a trial. And across from him, a 12-year-old black girl. Small frame, neatly tied curls. She's gripping a wrench nearly the length of her forearm, bent over the open engine bay of a silver Porsche 911. Her t-shirt is faded, her jeans patched at the knees. She looks like she doesn't belong. But her eyes, they don't flinch. They focus, and they know exactly what they're looking at. That girl is Zara Coleman, daughter of Owen Coleman, the most respected senior mechanic in the shop. And the man glaring down at her is Reginald Barker, CEO of the largest chain of auto shops across the state. He wasn't here to admire engines. He was here to enforce order. And in his version of order, a black child had no business laying hands on a $200,000 engine. Barker, smirking coldly. "What's next? You gonna let her rebuild the transmission too?" A few younger mechanics chuckle, nervously, but their laughter dies just as quickly. Because they see Owen Coleman, Zara's father, rushing over, not as a mechanic, as a father, as a shield. Owen, quietly, voice trembling, "Sir, she just stopped by after school. I'll take her home now." But Barker raises a hand, stops him. His smile curls into something else, cruel, calculating, like a man who just found a new game to play. He wasn't going to let her walk away, not without a show. This was no longer about tools or training. It was about power. It was about proving who belonged and who didn't. A black girl had stepped into the sacred world of engines, grease, and legacy, and Barker was about to make her pay for it. But what he didn't know, what no one in that shop saw coming, was that this little girl was about to dismantle more than just an engine. She was about to dismantle the entire idea of who gets to lead in this industry. You challenged the wrong girl, Mr. Barker, and the whole world's about to find out why. Barker Auto Complex sat on the edge of the city, but its reputation stretched across state lines. This place didn't just fix cars, it healed them. $1-million engines from the elite rolled in and out like patients leaving an exclusive clinic. And Reginald Barker, the man at the helm, believed that what kept this place running smoothly wasn't oil. It was order. And order in Barker's world meant three things. Mechanics did the fixing, engineers did the thinking. Kids belonged in classrooms, not garages. And black folks? They should stay quiet, do their jobs, take their checks, and never dream beyond that. Owen Coleman, Zara's father, knew that rulebook by heart. He was one of the shop's most senior mechanics. 15 years of flawless work, not a single technical slip on his record. But he also knew, one wrong move, one mistimed word, one glimpse of his daughter's shadow in the wrong moment, and it could all disappear. Zara didn't carry that fear. Since she was 8, she had followed her father into the garage, not to play, not to distract, but to listen, to ask, to learn. She memorized the hum of an engine like a song, could tell the difference between a clogged injector and a slipping gear just by ear. Her gift was real, precise, rare. But none of that mattered, because in Barker's eyes, Zara was just one thing: the mechanic's daughter. And worse, a black child in his workshop. He didn't see potential. He saw a threat. Small, silent, irrational, but impossible to ignore. The air inside the workshop turned to lead. The men, grown men, all of them, stood in a semicircle. Not one said a word. Not one stepped forward. All eyes were on her. 12 years old, alone, facing the quiet weight of judgment. And still, she didn't flinch, didn't step back. Zara stood tall, right at the center of a game she never asked to play. A game where adults wielded reputation and bias like weapons. One child, one father, and one boss who'd built a kingdom out of control. The standoff had begun, even if no one dared speak its name. Reginald Barker moved slowly through the garage, his polished leather shoes leaving clean prints on the grease-stained concrete. He didn't say a word. At Zara, like she was a smudge on a white tablecloth, told the entire room, this wasn't over. Then he stopped, right in front of a silver Porsche 911, half covered with a shop cloth. Let's make this interesting, he said with a smile that carried zero warmth. He pulled back the cloth. There it was. A beast of luxury, sleek, powerful, and completely dead. Its engine had stumped the entire crew for 3 days straight. No warning lights, no error codes, no ignition. Even Tony, the 30-year veteran mechanic, had shrugged in defeat. This one's weird. And now, Barker was handing it off to a child. This one's special, he said, tapping the hood with the back of his fingers. My best guys couldn't fix it, couldn't even run a proper diagnostic. But hey, he turned to Zara, one brow raised. Maybe the expert here knows something we don't. The whole workshop froze. Owen stared, stunned, at his daughter, at the Porsche, then back at Barker. He understood instantly. This wasn't a challenge. It was a setup. Sir, this isn't fair. She's just a... Exactly, Barker cut in, arms crossed. A child, but a very confident one, right? He glanced down at Zara. So here's the deal. If she can at least tell me what's wrong with it, I'll consider keeping your job. If not, you both walk. Today. This was no longer about a car. This was a game of power disguised as opportunity. A rigged trial, where a 12-year-old black girl was being shoved into the spotlight. Not to prove what she could do, but to validate what they believed she never could. Zara didn't speak, but her eyes didn't blink, didn't flinch. And that stare, that calm, steady stare, was the one thing Barker hadn't prepared for. No one in the workshop said a word. Not because they believed the girl could actually fix it, but because no one knew whether to pity her or just look away to spare her the humiliation. Zara stood alone beneath a dozen heavy stares. One hand clenched the wrench, the other wiped sweat from her brow. Her heart beat fast, but not out of control, because in her mind there was no more Barker, no fear, no shame. There was only memory. The nights when the neighborhood had long gone dark, and she lay inches from an old charger port, eyes fixed on a cracked phone screen flickering against the ceiling, reading technical English, translating every word, sketching every diagram by hand. Some nights, she cried. Sometimes she fell asleep mid-sentence, phone slipping from her fingers and smacking her cheek. There were times she wanted to throw it all away, because what the hell was a camshaft or injection timing supposed to mean anyway? But then she'd remember her father. He never went to college, never saw a textbook, but he had something no degree could teach. Engines speak, baby girl. You just gotta learn how to listen. And so she did. She learned the language of machines, like it was a second tongue. No laboratory, no tutor, no fancy laptop. Just raw persistence and a bull-headed curiosity that refused to die. And today, no one knew this, but she had been getting ready for this exact moment for 6 months. Zara stepped forward. Her eyes didn't meet Barker's. They locked onto the Porsche, like it had whispered something only she could hear. "I accept." The words rang out, not loud, not defiant, but with a weight that hit harder than anything Barker had ever heard from a child. The room froze. Barker leaned back, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Well then, let's see what you've got." But what he didn't realize, the girl he thought was just playing with tools, had learned to listen to things even grown mechanics had stopped hearing. Zara placed her hand on the hood, soft, like she was waking a sleeping beast. No one said a word, but every eye followed her every move. She bent down, lifted the hood. The scent of hot metal and engine oil wafted into the air. Most people found it unpleasant. Zara? That was the first language she ever learned, by instinct. She checked the ignition system first, then the fuel delivery, step by step, no hesitation, no glances toward her father, no pretending to play the role of a child. Each time she turned a bolt, she listened. Click, clack, snap. The sounds of metal speaking, not noise, music, a melody only someone who'd learned to listen could understand. Tony, the veteran mechanic, stood with his arms crossed at first. Like the others, he'd always assumed Zara was just Owen's shadow, a kid tagging along. But now he frowned, not out of annoyance, but genuine curiosity. "Wait a minute," he murmured. "She's following the diagnostic sequence perfectly." Zara didn't hear him, didn't need to. She leaned over the car's electrical control unit, paused at a small black module mounted behind the central relay cluster. "Interesting," she muttered, mostly to herself. The atmosphere shifted. The heavy silence from earlier had become something else entirely. She wasn't guessing. A hush of anticipation. She wasn't gambling. She wasn't lucky. She knew exactly what she was doing. More importantly, she knew where the adults had overlooked. Barker raised an eyebrow, arms still folded. "Well, found your fairy tale answer yet, princess?" Zara didn't even look at him. She gently unplugged a connector from the control unit, then turned to her father. "Dad, when this car came in, did we check the firmware on these modules?" Owen blinked, confused. Before he could answer, Tony stepped forward, eyes narrowing in real focus now. "Hold up. That module? We didn't even touch that." Silence. Then, one by one, the crew began to step closer, not because they were watching a child being humiliated, but because they were watching a young technician doing something none of them had thought to do. And they were suddenly very, very quiet. Zara leaned in close to the black module. Her eyes narrowed. A few thin cables connected it to the central control unit. She studied them for just a few seconds, then exhaled. Software calm, like something in her mind had just clicked into place. "Dad, this module isn't sending the start signal because..." She paused, glanced at Barker, then back at the crew. "It's blocking the default digital signature." The entire shop fell into a frozen silence. Tony frowned. Jake, the youngest mechanic, stepped back half a pace, scratching his head. "Digital signature? What does that even mean?" Zara looked around. She knew it was time to explain, not to show off, but because the truth was bigger than her. "I wasn't just studying." She looked up, voice steady, clear, unapologetic. "I was accessing their diagnostic cloud." The sentence dropped like a glass on concrete. Owen turned. Tony's eyes went wide. Jake's mouth hung open. "You... what?" Owen stammered. Zara nodded slowly, like she'd been carrying this secret for far too long. I used your old laptop, logged into the manufacturer's diagnostics platform, not to steal anything, just to understand. Why the same error kept showing up, why the software never flagged it, why the same small glitches always happened right after month 3. She swallowed. Her voice dipped. I had to know. Because those cars, it's like they were designed to break. Barker let out a harsh, barking laugh. You hacked Porsche? What's next, NASA? But no one laughed with him, because what Zara just said wasn't wild speculation. It was the assessment of someone who had spent hundreds of hours connecting error chains, reading system logs no one else had bothered to open. I found 17 vehicles with the exact same failure, she continued, eyes locked on the laptop beside her. Every single one used this same model of control module, and every single one failed, on day 91. Tony stepped forward. His eyes were red now. This girl, she's not like anyone I've ever seen. Number Zara wasn't just a kid. She wasn't some mechanic's daughter, playing pretend. Zara was someone digging straight through the layers, down to the root of something crooked. Zara opened the laptop. The screen lit up beneath the white shop lights. Each click of her mouse, deliberate, steady, landed like the sound of a judge's gavel echoing across a courtroom. You want to know why this car won't start? Because it was designed to fail, not by mistake, but by code, deliberate programming. A file opened. A list appeared. 17 vehicles. Same model Porsche. Different Barker Auto locations. Same issue. Same module. All failed on day 90. Tony took a step back. Jake gasped. Oh my God, she's right. But Zara didn't stop. She clicked open a second tab. An internal email. Domain @barkerauto.com. Sender, Reginald Barker. Hold vehicles for maximum of 48 hours. Do not recommend module replacement. Staff must not access firmware systems. Mark case as unrepairable. Offer customer discount on trade-in vehicle. No one dared make a sound. Then, a third tab. A scanned contract. An under-the-table agreement between Barker Auto and an internal division of Porsche. Right on the first page, commission rate, 15% per vehicle marked unrecoverable. Owen stood frozen. Tony gripped his wrench like it might break in his hand. Jake whispered under his breath, "We've been working like fools." Zara turned to face Barker. Not angry, just ice cold. You knew how to fix it. You just chose not to. You made my dad, Uncle Tony, Jake, all of them look incompetent in front of customers. You humiliated them. On purpose. Barker had gone pale. His hand trembled slightly. But he tried to hold firm, voice tight. This is fake data. She's not a licensed expert. She's just a little girl. Zara didn't respond. She just opened one final image. A payment transfer receipt. The recipient? Reginald Barker's personal account. There was nothing left to say. Sat there, the truth calm and undeniable, in a room filled with motor oil, steel, and men who had once believed that justice couldn't come from a 12-year-old black girl. But today, justice didn't knock. It kicked the door open. Wearing a faded t-shirt, torn jeans, and hands still stained with grease, the air in the workshop had shifted. This wasn't just shock anymore. It was anger, hot, pressurized, waiting for a spark, and that spark came from Zara. She gently swiveled her laptop around. The screen faced the entire shop floor now. At the top corner, a glowing red icon. Live, 1,032 viewers. I turned on the live stream the moment he challenged me, because I knew he wouldn't just try to humiliate me. He'd try to erase me. No one had time to react. Barker's eyes bulged. Sweat broke across his forehead. Wait, what? You've been filming this whole thing? Zara nodded. Calm. as if this had been inevitable. Every word, every file, every laugh you let out when you thought no one would hold you accountable. And now, they're all watching, not just the mechanics, but customers, engineers, people you've scammed, a whole community you thought would never speak up. The screen buzzed. A wave of live comments crashed across the display. "It's him! He made me pay $5,000 and told me my car was unsalvageable. My sister lost her job when her car failed. Same module, same silence. Has anyone called the FBI yet?" Owen froze. Tony stared at Barker like he was looking at a stranger. Jake whispered, "This isn't just an internal matter anymore." Zara never took her eyes off the screen. Each comment scrolled by like a piece of a puzzle she'd been carrying on her back. In silence. For months. This was no longer about a girl and a broken car. This was about a silence that had gone on too long, and someone finally brave enough to break it. She turned to Barker. "One last time. You're going to call me a hacker?" she asked, steady. "Then go ahead. But first, try naming the victims you tried to bury under silence and money." Just her, one girl, standing alone. While thousands listened, and for the first time in his life, Reginald Barker had no words left to say. 3 days later, the name Reginald Barker disappeared from every executive board listing across the Barker auto chain. Title, gone. Reputation, gone. Assets, frozen. Wife, filed for divorce the morning after the live stream. And finally, a federal indictment from the Department of Justice for organized commercial fraud. The media called it the fastest collapse in the history of postmodern automotive industry. But as for Zara Coleman, she didn't need headlines. Because before she could even shut down the live stream, the emails had already started coming in. From Tesla, from Google, from Microsoft. "We saw what you did. We read your code. We believe you're not just a child. You're a voice this industry needs." Zara didn't respond, not right away, because she was still at the workshop, wiping down old modules, checking each connection inside the broken-down cars Barker had left behind, not out of duty, but because she still saw herself as a student, not a star. And Owen? He watched from a distance, saying nothing, just quietly taking in the sight of his daughter, moving through rows of machines, not needing anyone to teach her, not needing a map. Tony walked up beside him, eyes filled with something more than pride. "That girl didn't just save this shop. She saved our dignity." Jake nodded. 12 years old, and she saw what we've all been pretending not to see for years. Zara said nothing, just smiled. Outside, the rain had begun to fall, but inside the workshop, no one felt cold anymore, because they knew. Starting today, the girl who once got laughed at for holding a wrench had just reset the moral foundation of this place. A system once built on greed was brought to its knees by one truth, and one live stream from a 12-year-old black girl with oil-stained hands and an unshakable mind. 3 months after the live stream that rocked the industry, the Barker Auto Complex sign was officially taken down. In its place, a new sign appeared. Plain white background, simple black font. Just 4 quiet words. Coleman and Daughter, Tech and Repair. No more flash, no ego-laced title, just a small garage. But inside, a new generation was being re-engineered. Zara, now dubbed by the media as a digital prodigy of automotive tech, didn't chase the million-dollar offers. She didn't head for Silicon Valley. She stayed. On the same street. With her father, with Tony, with Jake. The men who had witnessed and stood by her when it mattered most. She started a night class for the kids in the community, the ones who'd been labeled useless, troublemakers, or only good with their hands. "They're not broken," Zara said. "They just need one chance, and one person who doesn't underestimate their mind." From that little garage, she founded a non-profit program in automotive engineering and professional ethics. No GPA required, no fancy applications, just passion, and a story of being rejected somewhere else. Within 6 months, over 200 young people, black teens, immigrant kids, youth from shelters, graduated from the first cohort. Many were hired by rising electric vehicle companies. Some returned to the shop as peer instructors. Coleman and Daughter wasn't just a garage anymore. It had become a symbol of a child once dismissed for her age and the color of her skin, and of a community once forgotten, now standing tall, learning, rising, proving they were never beneath anyone. Zara didn't become a CEO. She became something far greater. A quiet force that rewired the system, not with noise, but with patience, purpose, and the kind of brilliance no one saw coming. It was a quiet afternoon in the auditorium of the local high school. On stage, under soft lights, stood a girl with coiled curls and a plain white shirt. No headset mic, no soaring background music, no dramatic effects. Just Zara Coleman, 12 years old, standing before hundreds of students, teachers, parents, and even some of the very people who once said she didn't belong in a workshop. She told her story, not to boast, but to share something the adults took far too long to understand. They confused my skin and my age with incompetence. That was their biggest mistake. A hush swept across the room. Zara looked toward the back of the hall, where her father sat. He nodded. She turned back to the crowd, her eyes fixed on her generation. When someone underestimates you because of your age, your gender, your skin, they unknowingly hand you the most dangerous gift of all, the power of surprise. They won't watch you. They won't listen to you. They won't see you coming, and that is when you can change everything. In the front row, a brown-skinned girl clenched the edge of her seat. A boy with glasses wiped tears from his eyes. Zara wasn't just speaking for herself. She was giving voice to millions who had been silenced by assumptions. "I didn't get revenge on Mr. Barker. I didn't want him to suffer. I just wanted him to understand that when he laughed at the oil-stained wrench in my hand, I was holding something he'd lost long ago. Integrity, and a kind of intelligence no money can buy." She stepped off the stage to a long, rising wave of applause, not because she had defeated someone, but because she didn't need to. When you're good enough, you don't have to destroy others. You just stand up and let the truth do its work. The best revenge is becoming so good they become irrelevant.